meeting at other sorts of places.
We've had in North Dakota, a few clubs now are starting to meet in person. They're, I'd say, a good month ahead of Minnesota as far as the state rules go. You know, and they track very similarly, but North Dakota being a month ahead. I participated in the first two hybrid meetings. It was out in Dickinson, and I thought they did a pretty good job. It was a combination of Zoom, which allowed me to participate, but they had the social distancing, and nobody was wearing masks. And I think in North Dakota, that's encouraged, but it's not required. Whereas in Minnesota, depending upon the environment, the physical environment you're in, there's a requirement tied to that. Last week, I sent out some guidance for our clubs. I haven't seen anything from Rotary other than, you know, follow what the CDC has to say. So I provided them links to each of our Department of Health in Minnesota, North Dakota, and Ontario. But I think one of the key leads that I've found that's actually quite helpful, at least in Minnesota and North Dakota, the venue that you're attending at, they're really good at providing the guidance, because they're the ones that are going to get in trouble if they are overstepping the rules. And so, you know, one of the things that I'm encouraging our clubs to do is be sure that they are in touch with the venues that they're working with, and check well ahead of time to find out, you know, what rules are they providing, what's the maximum number they can work with. And, you know, a big issue for a lot of clubs is the food side. You know, many of these have been buffet type environments, and that's changed. So I think working with the venue is as good an indicator as any, but they also have access to all of the information that Minnesota and North Dakota puts out. The other thing that we've been strongly encouraging is hang on to Zoom. Even if we're meeting face-to-face, this has proved to be such a valuable tool. And so many of our clubs have, you know, snowbirds and, you know, people who are still somewhat health compromised, or they travel. And as many of you experienced, there are great speakers that are available if you can meet by Zoom. You can get outstanding speakers. In fact, we've got one club, International Falls, I think they have 45 members, and July 1st, they'll have Barry Razin as their speaker. That wouldn't normally happen.
Right.
And so, you know, it's Zoom, I think, has been just a marvelous tool for our clubs. And I just hope that our, you know, especially our out west folks, don't think that now that they're back to face-to-face, they should let go of the technology.
Yeah, that's one. Well, you brought up something that's was brought up in our survey as well. I mean, it's all across the board on whether they want face masks or not. I mean, it's split almost 50-50. Some saying if you're not wearing a mask, you're not being fair to all concerned. Others that don't really care about it at all. And then, of course, like you said, Bob, food is a big deal, because a lot of our clubs do buffet type, either lunch or breakfast. And of course, that's completely out. So now it's, do you do box lunch? Do you just not do it at all? Do you brown bag it? And that's, every club's trying to figure that out right now.
In the venue where Dickinson's meeting, the facility has been providing box lunches.
Yeah.
Bob, the one thing I want to say is that I think we'll never get away from Zoom. We should never get away from Zoom. There are too many people who like this. I think the E-Club is the club of the past. The hybrid club is our club of the future.
I agree. I think that's exactly right.
Oh, I agree with that too.
And what are they doing in South Dakota? I mean, are they similar to North Dakota as far as, hey, we're ready to rock and roll, or?
Well, we never had any stay-at-home orders in South Dakota, and basically just hot spots with packing houses in small towns, so high level of infection in a small area. Both Sioux Falls and Huron, and then we had some challenges at Aberdeen. It's been fairly quiet, but now as people are starting to relax a little bit, for instance, we only had, we ran at about 16 or 20 positive cases in Brookings for a long time. And now this last weekend, we have 8 new cases. And so that's in Brookings. But across the state, there's just a couple of clubs that are talking about meeting in person. Downtown Sioux Falls has done a great job. They continue to have great programs that they Facebook Live every week, and so they've actually been inviting the entire district. And as an incoming district governor, I'm going to be encouraging clubs to let us know when they're having these meetings via Zoom, so we can include the entire district to some of these meetings. And then also, as we work together, if we have a big name speaker in another district, then open it up to others. I personally, am not going to be pushing at all for face-to-face. I'm actually going to stay in more of a Zoom mode because until we have a vaccine out there, we're dreaming if we don't think this is going to peak again. And I live this every day in animal health. I know what it's like to bring a group of naive calves in off of the range and put them in a group, and then bring some strange calves in and have a disease break. And it's unfortunate, but most of us have never worked with a virus in which we do not have a vaccine or immunity in our population. And this is a period of time, there's a downswing in positives, but I expect all heck to break loose this fall when flu season starts. And I don't think it's something that Rotary wants to be pushing face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, my friend. I was basically encouraging my clubs to do the same. Everything is over the internet, virtual, because if we see this thing pick up in the fall, which we all kind of expect it to, we need to be ready and equipped to have these virtual meetings ongoing. So I'm with you.
I would also add that I know in our Brookings Club, we just brought on 2 new members that were invited to attend a Zoom meeting, and then were asked if they wanted to join, and now they've joined through the Zoom season, and so in a 100-person club. And Rotary opens opportunities. Guys and women, this is the year to break the mold for Rotary. We keep talking about this. We keep talking about the fact that we need to address young professionals. We have every excuse in the book to break the mold this year. Let that go. Let's talk about how we meet and work with people virtually. Get together with a social maybe once a month, but let's do our work the way that the young professionals and the others in the world are doing it.
So Dan, I agree with you. I think one of the questions that our clubs keep coming to the district with is, and Bill, I see your comment too in here about breaking mandatory meals. What is our group doing to help clubs who are relying on meals revenue in their budget?
For us, I don't know the exact percent. At best, it's 50-50. But if we're using meals to generate funds for everything else that Rotary is doing, in a way, it's kind of a false way of raising money. And we need to think about engagement, participation, and figuring out how we actually get people to continue to participate in Rotary rather than overpaying for meals, because that's exactly why younger professionals don't join if they can't make the meeting.
Sure.
Right.
We've been some of the clubs in our district have encouraged people to donate the money that they would pay for meals to their foundations or to their clubs. So, and in some clubs that's working quite well.
In Boom Club, we're making it optional It's there as your meals, but it's an option whether you pay it or not. It's not mandatory. And we're having about 85% are giving the money knowing it's going for food insecurity or something in the community that way.
We have one club in our district that donated $75,000, just one club, and it was a club under 200 to the Heartland Food Bank. And it was magnificent, the response that they got, and also publicity in the community for their donations. Oh, yeah. So I do think that all of this has pulled people closer together. I think it's a good thing.
I have a suggestion for those of us who are having exceptional outside speakers coming in via Zoom or whatever, is record these and get them posted somewhere live so people can go after the archive later. We all have seen the example in the world of TED.com of videos that have lived on for years and years and years. Why should we not do the same thing in Rotary?
Right.
So maybe at the club level, maybe at the
on our district website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know we're recording all of our meetings, district-wide meetings. And we had one in particular that went really, really well. The Downtown Topeka Club, they partnered with Rotary Club of Harlem and had a joint meeting where the members from Harlem were talking about how they're dealing with COVID-19 because of course we all know that's a big hot spot. And that was one of the best meetings we've had all year, without a doubt. And of course, as you know, we would have never been able to do anything like that in person.
I went back, just to cycle back for a second to some of Dan's thoughts. I went back and read Holder's opening remarks from the International Assembly. And the thing that stood out to me now, again, what a difference 90 days or more makes, was his use of the quote from Paul Harris around revolution. I think that here we are in this year, we have the opportunity to have revolutions, mini revolutions all over our districts we clubs have been dragged a little kicking and screaming into the digital age, and they found out it ain't so bad. And so how can we work this together? I wrote that down because we have 3+ of the young professional style clubs. I like the 3 Zooms and a social. That's a pretty cool code around that too. I think that's something they could embrace pretty easily.
I've been impressed by, at least in the Brookings Club, the elderly, and I'm going to say elderly because these are some of the oldest people in our club that log in on Zoom. And I don't think they would dare come to a face-to-face meeting.
You know,
they would not take the risk.
Kind of playing on what Bill was saying, if you actually go back to this year's theme, Rotary Connects the World, think how prophetic that was.
Yeah.
We're doing stuff we never did. We're reaching people in more regions than we ever did. You and I, we're doing it right here. So the Connect the World theme really came to life in a way that none of us would have imagined.
Right. Similar to change, adapt, now.
Dana, we haven't heard from you. What are your thoughts?
Well, just might mention that we're doing a food project. Our district is donating $50,000 and providing food to all of the communities where we have Rotary clubs. And we're encouraging them to do some additional work with their food pantries or some other, as Steve put it, food insecurity issue. But we're excited about that. And then we're also partnering with your district, Farron 5710, with the tracing project. You might tell them a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we going off of what Bob did, Taylor, that is. I don't know if he's Bob 1 or Bob 2, but anyway.
I'm the other Bob.
But he had sent us an email a month ago about what the struggles he had in trying to get something going on in his state. So I've got a legislator that's in my club, and we've got a few other well, we've got 13 legislators that are Rotarians in 5710. And one of them is, like I said, in my club. So I leaned on her, and she found through our Kansas Department of Health and Education, or Health and Environment, KDHE, they have a large need for people to help with contact tracing, and they need like 400 volunteers. So Dana and I both put that out there for our members as something that they could be doing from the convenience of their home. It doesn't cost anything. There is a little bit of training that has to happen there, but it's not that much. Maybe an hour or two, and then it's all on the phone. And we made sure they knew it wasn't a Rotary sanctioned thing at all, but just want to make sure that they knew that that was available. And I don't know if Dana has any information on this, but I do not have any information on how many people has actually done that. But at least we offered it, and we're looking at we're constantly looking at some other ideas to do statewide, because between Dana and I, we cover 99 of 105 counties in this state. And if we can partner together, we can make a big impact in this state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody else before we move on?
Let's go.
All right. Next one is that I have on my list. What are your expectations on member retention? I'm curious to hear anybody contribute to that. I know John said a few things before we started, but you want to repeat some of that, John? Or
yeah, we've lost 30 members from a year ago today already.
And what percentage is that, John? Do you have a feel?
We were at 2569. We're 2539.
John, do you think that's a COVID issue, or is that just an issue?
I don't know. I think it's just an overall issue. I really don't have a precise reason for them leaving. Some here, I mean, obviously some die. I mean, that's a problem with that, but
I wish you could figure out how to solve that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been holding pretty steady, but I'm really concerned about the clean out that's going to happen at the first of the Rotary year.
Yeah.
And I think if we can proactively get out to my presidents, they're all in their last days of being president. The new president hasn't really come in yet, and we've got to talk to some of these people. I mean, just because they think they're going to leave doesn't mean they have to.
I know in 5650, I had a Zoom call with all the president-elects, and membership was one of the key reasons or concerns. I had each one of them give either whatever their goal is or what their concerns were. And the majority was membership. And they're all taking a pretty proactive, calling individuals that say they're not going to renew, try to find out why. And also some clubs have started up a fund to help them, if it's monetary, to help them stay in Rotary and keep it confidential. But there are a lot of the clubs having those abilities to help people stay in the clubs. And there's always people that leave for other reasons, but right now we're trying to hold as strong as we can.
John, did you say that you're losing about 30 from 2969?
Yeah, you're muted, John.
Yeah, we lost 30. We went from 2569 to 2539.
So that's roughly 1%. So I mean, I would be hard pressed to consider that that's a COVID loss, considering that we move up and down 10%. And
COVID is not that big an issue down here.
Okay.
We're gonna, in 5870, this is Rick Stacy, we're gonna lose 100 members. That's our projection.
What do you base that on, Rick? How do you,
by
I have no idea to that question. I have absolutely no clue what's going to happen.
Well, for one reason, we're already down 85. and I know that there's going to be we'll probably be closer to 110 by the 1st of July. We're down 85 as we speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a bloody time. A lot of that is some big clubs hadn't pared down in a couple of 3 years, and I've been pretty active on trying to get them to get their list where they need to be, and so some of that is just need to happen anyway.
Let me throw this out. This 30 that we're losing is not just this year. It's a trend for the last 5 years. We've been losing every year, year over year over year over year. I mean, it's time we stop it, and we're working on that, but it's not just this year.
Well, you know, John, every year we say the same thing. You know, it's been at least 3 years that we've been talking about, hey, this is it. We've got to stop it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. We do have to stop it. And you know, they've talked about it. And I mean, one of the things that we found here that does work well is satellite clubs. And we've got some large communities that are developing around here. So we just need to get out and move things. We worked with Tom on a veterans club that we're fixing to start up down here. It looks like it's about 2 weeks away from going, but you know, little things like that chip in and help. It only takes 3 startup veterans clubs to overcome what we've got.
Here's another thought to share. Our district, and it's clear as a bell for me, we're losing 1.3% a year, historic over the last 5 years, rolling average. But I have a goal, and it's audacious and it's outrageous, but I think COVID's going to let us grow this year. I think there's opportunity to be had. We're showing the world that we can meet differently. We're showing people that we are a way to connect to one another. There are people who are going to be out of jobs or looking for newer and better jobs, and maybe we can be part of their puzzle. So that's going to be something I'm going to be pushing at the clubs. They're probably going to think I'm nuts, but I'm okay with that. We've got to reach for the brass ring. We've got opportunity here. Let's not lose the opportunity.
Craig, I'll second that. I just got done with 4 1-week session, 1 hour sessions with my PEs and PNs. We talked about that. We're losing 53 members in 6,000. Typical number, we've lost 700 since 09. But I have confirmed 7 of those 53 were COVID virus situations, lost jobs. So we're trying to address that issue on top of it. I think after July 1, I think there's a great opportunity for the rest of this year, our years, to build on the numbers, because all the opportunities we have in front of us, the new approaches, everybody's getting comfortable with Zoom now. So it's a great opportunity. All you got to do is look good from the waist up. You know, put a hat on if it's a bad hat.
You know, I hear what everyone's saying, but my argument is it's not all meetings. One of the things that I'm hanging my hat on is I got a gal here named Vivi Bennett, who is my Rotaract chairman. And I think Rotaract is where I'm coming from. Rotaract is going to be where we're going, folks. Us old folks are going nowhere but the cemetery. We need the young folks.
Yeah. We've got a new community-based Rotaract club that's just chartered, and we're going to do the first member recruiting for that next month. So that's been good. This district's never had a community-based Rotaract club, so that'll be really interesting. I met with them just this last week, and they're young and they're hungry and they want to grow. So that's a good thing. The other side of it is we're going to be losing 2 clubs in our district because neither one of them is very big. One of them is only 9 people, and well, yeah, maybe it's a little bit bigger than that, but 3 of them are in their 80s, and they just got tired of trying to keep the club together. But we're hoping that at least 5 or 6 of them will join one of the other clubs in Topeka, so that they'll stick around. And then the other one is wanting to merge with another club in Kansas City. And, just like some of you have been saying, we too have seen shrink in our district. And last year in 18 and 19, we saw we lost 100 members in this district. And this year, before COVID, we were up 2 members, which, of course, after having a year like that, that's actually a win. But we're looking at possibly building 2 e-clubs in the next year. So I'm hoping that's going to be a really good thing. One of the things we decided to do, I know Susie on one of our calls mentioned our succession plan that we have in our district, where we've already, all 4 of us that are in the DGE line are meeting at least once a month or once every 6 weeks, and to try to build some continuity here. And what we agreed on and what's already been approved is that we cut for this coming year, we've cut our district dues in half and made them not payable until January. And I, in our pets, put that to the clubs and said that I want you to use this as a way to try to attract new members and keep, and especially the biggest thing that I've seen, and this has happened in our own club, in my own club, is that the economic impact of COVID, not COVID itself, is we're losing members because of that. I know one restaurateur that's a friend of mine that just canceled his members, resigned from our club because of that very reason. The economic impact of this is huge, really, really huge. And that's going to affect our members just as much as the disease will. And I think we really need to keep that in mind going forward, because if you're struggling, a member due is probably going to be one of the first things you look at cutting.
Farron and others, I'm curious to hear from the group. Farron, you talked about clubs that are on the bubble at risk. I've got one that's at that risk, and I'm working with them to see if they'll convert themselves to a satellite. Has anybody else played with that idea for clubs that are thinking about dissolving?
Well, I've had 2, and I merged them with other clubs.
We've had that discussion with a few clubs. Tom, sorry.
Yeah, that's quite, it's just the same answer. We've got to have 2 clubs that we've been working on becoming the satellite of a neighboring club. I think one we're going to be able to make the transition, and the other one we're not, because they're not willing to really work at it at all. And yeah, I think we've said goodbye to that club. But the satellite thing can be really important. I think we established 2 of them that exist in, they're not quite nursing homes. You know what I'm talking about? They're like communities for older people. And we have found we had a lot of ex-Rotarians in those communities, and we created a satellite club to one of their neighboring clubs. And then we picked up like 35 members. Very short time. And they're busy as all get out. So that was a very successful extension for us.
What has COVID done to that senior living facility? You know, I've wanted.
As far as I know, they're all still there. I mean, that's where they live, you know.
Actually, that raises a good point, Tom. I was just on a meeting where a large senior living facility was part of that gathering, and they're affected differently than the hospitals and clinics. you know, in the hospitals and clinics, they lost a lot of their income from elective surgeries and like. But Tom raises a good point. This is where people live. And so
they're not, this is not a place where they're, it's not a rest home. And they're not in bed all day long. These are people living regular lives, driving, going places, but that they live in this community, and that's the way.
Farron?
Yes.
I think these are great discussions, and we're talking about, you know, places, unmet needs where we find new members, and this is a neat idea with satellites. But I go back to what President-elect Holger has talked about, and he is not setting new member numbers as far as I know.
That's right.
I mean, that was his message to us, is we're not talking about finding new members. How much of our discussion is being centered around how we're engaging the Rotarians that we have? And I find it difficult. I mean, I'm very opposed to decreasing dues, because for the amount that people pay for Rotary International dues and district dues, that is not why people do not stay in Rotary. Now, if we charge them for meals that they never eat, we can lose a few. But the very same people that are not, if we think that they're not willing to pay Rotary dues, will gather together with a group of people for a cause in their town and have a beer and pizza on every Monday night and spend much, much more than we would ever ask them to spend in Rotary and even supporting the foundation. So I'm just asking the group to kind of, let's retool, rethink where we're at in line with President-elect Holger's comments.
I think that's a great point, Dan. You know, we're talking about the qualitative experience, you know, making membership memorable, as Justin Brown had put in his presentation with the M&Ms. It's a matter of the qualitative experience. Are they engaged or not? And that's, you know, the numbers are staggering. A presentation that I think it was Ed Merrick's group had with Tom Torfinson, where he was showing the numbers. If we retained half the people that had joined, you know, we would be huge. But we keep having this revolving door of membership. You know, it's like a YMCA pass. We just keep turning and turning and turning. How do we get the people engaged and make it an experience they want to be a part of?
Yeah. I want to quote Holger. I mean, specifically quote him in this. His statement was, he encourages Rotarians to seize many opportunities Rotary offers to enrich their lives and the communities they serve. And a meeting is not either their life or their community.
No.
They need to get out there and do their community. That's where the key is, folks.
Well, one thing we're doing in our district, this is Roger from 5790, is I took some advice from John over in Dallas over here. But we're taking our dues and we're billing half the dues in July and the other half the dues in January, with the hopes that we'll bring our membership up between July and January. Also, it takes a little bit of the burden off. For what little it is, it's a few bucks, but it might be the difference in getting somebody off the fence or you know, across that threshold where they stay with the club.
You know, Roger, the math of that's an interesting thing, though. Our district, we charge district dues once, payable in July, right? So if a club gets a member during the year, that's their money. They keep, you know, they should charge them for the dues, presumably, and most prorate it. But, you know, just think of the math balance there, because actually if a club gets a member, that's just money in their kitty until the next year.
We prorate the dues, Scott. We get them if they join in August, we get them in January. We'll back bill them for that.
See, we don't. I'm just saying. So, you know, the club actually that's just money the club then has. You know, RI will catch them in January, but, you know, if it's, depending on what time of the year it is. So it's kind of, you know, math's kind of interesting to think about that. Also, you know, one thing I'd throw out to you guys, and I think we might get to the changes in the foundation thing a little while later, but part of part of the thing that I wonder is, do district governors, do we challenge our membership to step up in the ways that we should? You know, the deal with the cutting the club match, the cash match on the global grants. The good news is we got all these grants we want to do. The unfortunate news is we just don't have as much money as we need. It's like a good problem, but I'd be interested, how many of you, challenged your district to increase the amount of giving that you have for both the annual fund and polio this year? You know, are we doing that? Are we pushing it just like you would do in your business? You plan your business to grow. Are we as leaders in our districts, are we doing that?
Well, number one, the way we do it is we put a statement out there. If they don't put a goal in for annual fund and polio, they don't get a district grant. So
that's
at least
fine. But what do you do? Are you telling them that you want your year's giving to be higher than last year's total giving?
I don't compare years, but I do want giving. And right now, as far as giving, I mean, polio is hurting something really bad. We really all need to look at DDF that's out there and give that to polio right now. Otherwise, we're going to miss our match from the Gates Foundation.
Scott, to answer your question specifically, I'm asking clubs to average $300 per capita in annual fund giving alone.
Wow.
Now that's a pretty good nut, and I'm not ashamed to ask for that. We deserve that.
Rick,
now that's an average.
Where are you today? Increase from this year?
I'm sorry?
Where are you today?
Where are you today?
We'll finish this year at about 280.
Wow.
We did 306 last year.
That's great.
We're asking for 300 per capita. And when I told you we're going to lose 100 members, we also have a goal to bring in net 200 new members. So, yeah, I want them to get their list realistic and get where they need to be. And come 1 July, we're going to start working.
This is Ed out of 5960. We're on our way to about $500,000 this year, and then COVID hit and took the wind out of the sails. So to try to make up the momentum a bit, we've got a special promotion going here in June. It's the push for 400K. So we're trying to get us up to 400,000. We're just a little over 300,000. And part of the deal is we're offering for anyone in June who gives $365 in the month of June, they will get a Paul Harris. We've got plenty of Paul Harris points, and we're just putting that thing out there as an incentive to get it up. And so far, it's coming along fine. I think we're up to 26 members, I believe, that have given $365 in total just in June alone. As compared with last year, I think it was 8, and the year before that was like 5. So it's really starting to gain some momentum, and hopefully it'll push us up for this year, and we'll try some more creativity next year.
One of the things that we've seen in our district year over year, we've been pretty consistent, getting anywhere from 300,000 to 330,000 a year going to the annual fund. And we used to, for several years, we had a foundation banquet that we would do in November, but there wasn't a whole lot of giving at that particular banquet. It was more of an awards type thing for the clubs that given the most. And we have some clubs that do compete on per capita, and one in particular, and those two that compete the most are going to lose this year because there's one small club that had a person that gave enough to become a major donor too. And so their average out of 17 members, their average is now like 900 per, and no one's going to touch that. But one of the things that we're switching in our district is instead of doing a fall banquet, we're going to do a March early spring foundation event. We haven't really come up with a name for it yet, but it's going to be a big fundraiser, and it's all fundraising, no awards, nothing like that. It's going to have live entertainment. I've already got an auctioneer that we're going to bring in that does charity auctions all the time. I've seen him do this before. I saw him actually sell a dollar for $60 at a conference, and he told me when I was trying to get him to do this, he said, well, I've sold a glass of water for $1,000 and a half-eaten dessert for $1,500. So I'm like, yeah, I want you. and we can make it to where if you've attended some of these live auction fundraisers, I'm sure some of you have, you can make it to where each member that is there, if they're a Rotarian, you can give them the foundation credit for that when you cash them out at the end of the evening. So that's something that we're working on, and hopefully that turns into a really big event, because we want that. This would be our inaugural time to do this, and we'd like to see that being something that we do for the next 30 years.
How many Paul Harris Society members do you guys have in your district?
In our district, it depends. That's a good question. I don't know the exact number. I know we can look it up.
We've got 128.
128. We got,
yeah, and that's one of our big pushes. We try to push that more than anything else. Get the Paul Harris Society.
And it's so easy too when you do the Rotary Direct. That just makes it super easy. Yep. If you're trying to do that, I mean, $85, actually $83.33 a month is enough to get you in Paul Harris Society if you continue doing that. And I know we have one club in particular, and it was that club that I just sent that email from, Ambassadors Club. You have to be a Paul Harris Society member to be a member of that club.
That's great.
So they're 100%. They're the only club we have that's 100% Paul Harris Society. But we have several, quite a few throughout the district. I know that.
Craig, were you the one who was going to the retirement homes with their places for their satellite clubs? Who did that?
I think it was Bob.
Craig. Yeah. Well, sounds kind of crass, but that's a great place to look for bequest society.
No kidding.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh my God.
You're dead on there, I'll tell you.
Dead on. All right, we're coming up. We're at 5 till 7 right now. Want to move on to the next one and try to wrap it up here fairly soon?
Sure.
Okay. The last one I had on the list, and I think this is going to bleed in what Becky had sent to us. What big events do you have planned just right now? I told you about one that we have in our district. I also have a DGE installation that's going to happen on the 25th, the same day as John and Tom, and mine will be in person, but it will still be a hybrid. We'll do either a Facebook Live or a Zoom to bring in people who can't be there, because we're limited to 45 that we can have in one meeting, and we're going to do it at a country club out here in Topeka. What other events have you guys got going on?
Our installation will be in a couple of weeks on the 27th, and we flipped it to an afternoon deal at one of our at a Rotarian's office facility, and he's got a big meeting room, so we think we could actually put 200 people in there socially distanced. Right now I just got an email, we've got 154 people registered. So, we're trying to make sure that we're very cautious in how we're going about it, and make sure that everybody, wearing a face mask and that sort of thing. So, but for our district, I mean, it's not, you get 400 or 500 people at an installation banquet normally every year. So it's a big decrease for us, but it's still something that's good. And we got a lot of the president-elects, the AGs, the other district officers are coming, the people who would be installed per se. So we feel good about that. And then our districts have they installed a music park, and they're going to have kind of a celebration, the ribbon cutting on that on July 4th.
We're having a face-to-face installation banquet on the same day, 27th, and it's going to be face-to-face. We'll have a Zoom feed there, but you know, it's face-to-face. But attendance will be about 50% of what it averaged probably over the years.
Anyone else?
My installation is going to be virtual on the 18th. And so I asked the question because I'm just wondering how we, you know, when Susie installs 35 or however many members of my district leadership team, I assume, Susie, that you'll just say their names and then at the end have everybody, what?
What is this? Oh, we're playing charades.
What does this mean?
I'll keep it moving.
Okay. So then at the end, then everybody, those people will unmute themselves and say, I will, or whatever. Is that how you envision it?
After I ask them to do 3 things.
Okay.
And when they agree, they need to turn on their
Sounds good.
microphone.
You just don't say I do anymore.
Yeah. I will, whatever. Uh-huh.
All right, anybody else?
I want to say one thing. I tell you what, I really enjoy meeting with you guys. This is always so enjoyable and so much fun. You are the greatest bunch of folks I've ever known. Thank you very much.
Great.
Awesome. We like you a little bit too, John.
Yeah.
Aaron, this is Susie. Can I ask a couple of questions?
Please.
We didn't get to the racism statement that Rotary put out. If y'all have any feedback for me, I would like to hear it. You can send it to me personally if we don't have time today to cover it. Also, I wore this headset because the week of the International Convention, I would like for you to post, each of you, every day, a watch party picture, because right now we are all looking back to last year's Hamburg pictures and people's Australia pictures. You know, get your flags out, put on your Hawaiian shirts. I know for some of you it's a stretch, but post pictures because we're going to remember this year.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I'm looking for a statement. If anybody knows where the COVID grants information is or what we've done for COVID from Rotary, I can't find it. If anybody has it, if you would send it to me or put it, that you'll be sending it in the chat box.
What are you looking for again?
I have to give a speech to non-Rotarians and they want to know what we're doing for COVID. So I want to mention the grants, the disaster grants.
Because we've done a whole lot up here, but I don't know anything.
No, I think we got it from Rotary.
Do we?
I think there was, yeah. So if anybody has an idea where that might have ended up, that would be great. And y'all haven't read the exchange student documents that have come out? That didn't come up at all, but I presume you have it, so I'm not going to bring it up. And if y'all would start 1, 2, or 3 satellite clubs or new clubs right there, would take care of your membership problem.
We got a Veterans Club going in, thanks to Tom.
Yeah. Well, there ought to be 23 Veterans Clubs. Y'all have them.
Yeah, we got
and
Turning too.
Keep it moving. New Zoom. So we are buying the new Zoom with interpretation. Linda Mirren is in charge of making that happen. Bobby Barnes will be the gatekeeper, but we can do projects together with 25A, which is now region, July 1 were regions. That's region 32, and you and I up here are region 36, just in case it comes across and you don't know where we are. And I look forward to seeing you all June 30th. I would appreciate if you dress up and have a bow tie.
Susie,
Was that
what's
Roger?
What is that event? Can you give us
what
more
is the cost?
information on it?
The cost is free.
June 30th. What's June 30th?
June 30th, 6 o'clock. It's our
No,
farewell,
this
1
is
hour.
the Zoom with interpretation.
It's in the works. If it's ready for June 30, just know on June 30, I have invited your counterparts from Central America, Colombia, Venezuela to join us. Hopefully we'll have interpretation by then. If not, there'll be a lot of activity in the chat box.
Do they speak Texan?
What is that?
I am grateful they understand me. Oh my
What time is that?
Bueno.
Central Daylight Time, 6 o'clock.
How about
You
standard
record
time?
that, Susie, because there are conflicts, I know. That's a pretty busy week for all of us.
That's actually been listed as 5 o'clock prior to this.
Standard time.
Then it's 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, whatever Linda
Central
Merritt
time.
sent out, Central Time. But if y'all would look nice, because I'd like to take your picture, and hopefully many of you can show up because I'm going to swear you in.
Good.
Yeah.
I will.
I just wrote it on my calendar, so it has to happen.
Is it 5 or 6 o'clock though?
Yeah, I
Okay, they
found it
said
on
it's
my
5
calendar
o'clock.
at 5.
5.
Then
Okay.
let's do it at 5.
Okay.
If
5.
you miss it at 5, I could still be on. There's no telling. But it is a cocktail party, so dress up, have your appropriate cocktail, and we will have fun.
If we don't wear a bow tie, can we still come in or no?
Yeah.
I don't
I'll
have a
take
bow
you. I'll take you.
All right.
I thought we
You
were
gotta have a
Hawaiian
headdress
shirts.
on.
Susie,
Rick,
how
if
long
you
is
don't
it
have a
going to
bow
go
tie.
on? Because I could be late.
It's 5 to 6.
Okay.
It was so nice to chat with you. I'm done. Thank you, Farron.
Okay, Linda sent that out. I didn't see that.
I have it on my calendar. I just didn't remember it.
I didn't have it on my calendar, so
She's not on the call, so y'all email her and say, what's up?
Hey,
Just ask her to send a reminder, please.
Hey, John, not everybody was invited.
I know, because I'm installing another club that night.
Oh, yeah. Chuck wakes up for this.
She said it out in an email.
We didn't talk about the racism thing at all. Is that something that there is interest in having another call on, or is there an update anywhere, Susie, from what Rotary's doing besides the statement?
I think it was Lyle that asked the question. Lyle, would you like to elaborate? I would just like to see us moving forward, having a conversation, because otherwise things stay the way they are.
something that just happened, I sent over, and I think you got it too, Susie, is Susie knows Jackie Live, and she's the incoming president for the Ambassadors Club here in this district. And she just sent over just a few hours ago a statement that club is making based on what's going on right now with racism. And John and I were talking just before the rest of you came on, and he found that racism statement by Rotary. So I would be interested in hearing what you guys have to say about that, because the statement from Rotary is good, and what she sent over was really good as well. And I'd just be interested in hearing what you guys want to say about that.
Well, my district team is having a meeting tomorrow night on that specific subject because there are some members that think we need to take an active role in demonstrating and partnering up with racial groups in the metropolitan areas. And so I suggested creating some kind of strategic plan to move forward instead of just rushing in, not having a plan or statement. So those statements, Farron, that you sent out were very helpful, that I'm going to use as guidelines for tomorrow's meeting. So it is a challenging subject because Rotary needs, I don't know. I'm very cautious about how to move forward in a productive way in the light of Rotary.
Xavier, didn't you put something out?
Yeah, absolutely. So with being the only black guy on the call, I think, well, Scott, you look a little, you know. No, he has a little swag to him. You know, it's really not hard. You know, as Rotarians, we're humanitarians.
Right.
Yes.
That just means people, right? And so I think what we're seeing is we just have to understand people. When we go into these third world countries and we serve, we have a certain level of empathy for those people. And so we have to do the same thing right here in our own backyard. Empathy. That's the key to understanding. And so although I may not know what it means to be a woman, I can empathize with my wife because I know what hurt feels like, or I know what certain emotions feel like. And so if I think in terms of that, then I can easily connect with what she has going on. And so I think it's the same thing when it comes to color lines, right? Using your empathy, using that gift that God gave us to really understand the plight of others. It's real. And I'll be honest, I'll say if you have people of color in your districts, they're hurting right now. I'm hurting. It's very hard. Not because it happened to me directly, but because we're oftentimes classified together as a Black race. When it happens to one, it kind of happens to all. I'm not sure how that feels on another side, I guess you can say. But for me, it hurts. Anytime I see anyone die. But when I know that, how can I say, authority has its hand in a way that could be abusive in a sense, it gets kind of scary. So that's my point on it. I'm not against police. I know that's a topic that comes up, but I'm not against police. I'm just against abuse of authority at any given deal. So I'm open for questions, and you don't have to tread lightly. You can ask freely.
No, I think in our district, a lot of people are hurting too, Xavier. And I did send a message out. It was a long one. It was about 4 pages talking about it. I'll share it with the folks by email. But I think it's also time to have a conversation about the fact that, you know, Xavier, you said you're the only person of color on this call, and a lot of our clubs are look the same. And why is that? And what can we do about it? And how can we make Rotary more appealing and accessible to all? And, so we're trying to have those discussions, and I think this is a launching point for trying to improve things there.
If you look at this picture of us.
Chuck.
Go ahead, Xavier.
No, I was just going to add to Chuck's. You know, the biggest thing we can do is we can't do anything without people in the room, right? And so we have to get to know. When I walked into my first Rotary meeting, no one in there looked like me. I had to use my fortitude, I had to use my resilience, and I had to break down my own walls to see that they're just people and there's nothing to be afraid of. And I'm happy I did, because I've been in Rotary ever since. And so it's gonna take the same from the other side. But I'll tell you, you're gonna walk in and everyone's not gonna talk like me. Everyone's not gonna sit like me and discuss like me. It's gonna be different, but we have to get to know each other.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, you know, if you look at the snapshot of this picture, it's pretty much the stale, pale, and male deal. I mean, we barely even got any women in our particular class here. And I think it's great that Xavier's here and he feels comfortable talking to us, because I think that's who we are. I think every one of us, we're sensitive. I know in our district, a couple of things we've done is we created a group that's just looking at diversity. Where are we not represented? And let's go engage those communities. You know, be it Black, the Chinese, the LBGQ. You know, every community. Where are we not focusing? Where are we not part of that community? And try to figure out how we can engage and become part of those communities. And then also from a new club development standpoint, we've got someone who's just going to try to study out and look at, from the affinity and diversity, where are we not, again, where do we not have clubs? And then kind of looking at today's situation, we've had a peace committee at our district, and it's kind of one of those committees that's just feel good committee, but that, what have they ever done? Nothing. And so hopefully right now, though, with our situation, we have something for them to really dig into, and been trying to just let that committee have some dialogue. And I can tell you, they're a very diverse group of people, and they've really pushed hard and tried to flesh out some things. And I think our long-term goal is to figure out what can we do that's substantial going forward. I mean, do we create a Rotary Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution? I don't think there's anything we can do about, today. Exactly. We have to be even cautious how we do that so we don't offend someone. But what can we do long-term that would really be impactful and make a difference? And that's kind of what we're trying to look at from, at least in our district.
One of the suggestions I made was that we could create a Rotary Action Committee in our district in regards to peace and reconciliation, and invite members from all over our district to join that group instead of individual clubs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've grappled with on this, you see on Facebook and all the different organizations and businesses, they post their statement and they're sincere, and yet it almost, sometimes it feels like Me Too, not the Me Too like that movement, but I mean like, well, now we should do something, and really, is that meaningful? And I like these ideas that y'all are talking about really trying to get into it within our districts and figure out what we can do to make a difference. But there is, I don't know if y'all feel it, but I feel it, a little pressure of, gee, I mean, should we make a statement? And I've been asked by one of the clubs or one of my assistant governors, what's the district's stand on this? And I don't know, it's an issue because you want to make a stand, you want to do the right thing, and yet it kind of gets to the point of, is it really sincere, or do we really need to spend our time figuring out things we can do rather than trying to find the right statement to say? I don't know what the answer is. It's not.
Becky, what I sent out was more of an internal document from me to the clubs and the club presidents, and thoughts that I had on the subject and thoughts about what we could do about it. I don't think, as a district, I didn't think it wouldn't impress anybody for our district to send out a statement condemning racism. I mean, who's going to know what our district is to begin with?
Right.
But like the Ambassador Club that we saw, that was, I think, it was more powerful because it came from a group of people that decided this is how we want to speak to it. But I want my clubs to be talking about it. I want them to be thinking about, how is this impacting their communities? How's it impacting their club? And not just ignore it and say, hey, this doesn't really matter to us.
Becky, I'm with you too, because words are cheap. And there are a lot of words out there, and there's not much behind them. I would rather have something behind them. That's what we want to work on, and prove that we're actually intent on doing something rather than just saying
it. I agree with what Lyle's saying, that our actions speak louder than our words. However, I think it's really important that Rotary makes a statement and takes a stand. And it might be tough, and we might get pushback, and we might even lose members. But we need to make a stand based on what we do around the world and the empathy we have for others. And we need to have that same empathy within our own country. And it's part of our own strategic priorities to expand diversity and adapt. And that's what we're supposed to be doing for Rotary. So to not make a statement is dodging the bullet. And I've never felt like I'm biased to blacks or prejudiced, but we happen to have a very, very close black friend, and I cannot believe the hurt and pain that's going on with a highly educated female because she has black skin. And it's stuff that I didn't even know existed in her life that she's had to deal with every day. And as a bunch of white males on this call, I'm not making any judgments at all, but I don't think we really get it. And we really need to dig into this.
I might also just suggest to you, each of us have an opportunity coming up at our installations. Think about what it is you're going to say at that installation. I mean, I've been trying to understand that and trying to figure out, you know, what I think is appropriate. But I think there's something around that will come out. And just, you know, I would suggest each of us on this call, we have a platform within the next 2 weeks to make a statement or not.
I'm in total agreement with that, Scott. I've been thinking about that every day for the last 2 weeks. And I know that we should be using that as, I think we should be using that as a vehicle to make a statement for our district as well. So thank you for saying that. Tom, you had your hand up.
Yes, I definitely think it's good to make a statement like that. I actually had an African-American friend of mine give his story. We'll see how much of it's edited out, but his feeling was exactly like Xavier felt when he first went to his first Rotary meeting. He was the only person of color in that room. And he talked about, he felt like leaving, but then at a district meeting, he met some more people and he decided to stay. The other thing I'd caution against is what I've learned from our district in the last few years. We seem to have clubs who are good intention and they run in and they do something, like the Eco Club builds a garden in downtown Minneapolis. We had a established club that built a library, and then the club that's in that area never gets invited to those. So what we're doing is I put together a committee with 2 African-American people on it. One started the North Minneapolis Club. The other one has a degree in public administration from the Humphrey Institute. And what we're doing is we're partnering up with the YWCA, who is mostly African-American and their staff, and they're going to be helping us facilitate unconscious bias seminars. So instead of us just rushing in and thinking that we know what's best, we're going to listen to what the community says and try to find out what they really need and how we can really help and get a conversation going before we just start jumping in.
Right. I want to say something here.
Just real quick, I wanted to ask Xavier. Oh, sorry. Who's that speaking?
Steve.
Oh, go ahead.
Steve, here. I want to say too often we see tolerance, but not acceptance. And we need to have these conversations so we can have acceptance of what's going on. Tolerance isn't going to cut it.
No, not hearing. Yeah. Yes.
Vern, this is Dana. I just hope we don't lose sight of the fact that we didn't just arrive at this situation. We have been working in the area of humanitarian work, as Xavier said before, for many, many years. So we have some bona fides. We have some backing for what we've done. We've got a portfolio of work that we've done. We can stand up and take the same position that we basically have been taking now for 40, 50 years, and just reemphasize that that's what we're all about.
Xavier, I wanted to ask you, you said you sent a statement out to your district already?
Not an official one, my friend. It was just a post on Facebook.
Okay.
It was really more so about educating the new friends that probably added me on Facebook, just to kind of let them know that this is real. It's a real thing. It's not made up. I've checked off every box along the way. I'm from South Georgia, so I've seen some things, but I never let that kind of control my mind and my heart. But along the way, I've seen some things, but I always knew I had to check off these boxes, and still, you still get confronted with different mindsets, of course. So I just posted something that wasn't emotional, more so intellect driven, so that it was an educational piece to bring back some of the history so people can understand that systematically there are some things still in place that keep us from progressing or having an equal playing field in a sense. But I will put out a statement to our district within the first 2 weeks after July 1st, just saying, hey, this is a real deal. Zero tolerance, just like everything else, sexual harassment. We're Rotarians, man. I really can't see it happening anyway. I just think I got some of the best people, on the side of me, even on this call. So I can't really say it happening, but just for the new folks that might come in, we just got to kind of let them know that this is the culture of our organization. So.
Well, I would love for you to share that with us when you come up with that.
Will do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I watched a documentary that my daughter and grandchildren recommended I watch last week on Netflix, and it's called 13th.
Yeah.
It's really done well. It made me very sad, but it was done very well. I would recommend everybody watch it.
So I was meeting with one of my clients yesterday. She is African American, and she was telling me about a program that's going to be on Netflix. It's an ongoing series. It's called Unsolved Mysteries, I think. Anyway, her cousin, about 1.5 years ago, I think, I'm not sure if I got the time right, but he was murdered at a party in a small town just about 2 hours south of here, south of where I'm sitting right now. And it's when you hear her talking about it, and her mother is also one of my clients. Like Xavier said, it's real. It's very real. And when they were down there trying to find the body, there were people trying to run them off the road. It's a real thing.
I'd also just throw it to you guys. I know, 1 or 2 meetings ago, I kind of got flared up when John was talking about firing. And it wasn't at John. It was that general notion. And I would suggest to you that we need to make sure that we as an organization are treating one another within our organization with respect before we think we're high and mighty enough to go out and espouse to the world what anybody else ought to do. And the politics of Rotary, that's the dark, dirty side of Rotary. And I, for one, want to take that on and make sure that first, we as Rotarians respect one another. Because how can we be saying we ought to respect anybody else if we can't even respect each other first? Because remember, when they look at us and our actions, when they see us being petty and tacky to one another, we have no validity out there in the world. So again, it's kind of, that's the burr under my saddle deal, but let's make sure we're taking care inside our house. In my district, my club, that's where I got to start. We have that in my club, right? I know that. And we got to get it taken care of in my club and in my district before we go to the world, is my opinion.
Well, I'll go back and say, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ said, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord God as well, with all your heart, soul, and the second greatest is to love each other. And we should love each other, period. Nothing else. Just love each other.
Hear, hear.
All right, guys, we're coming up on 7:30. So we've blown through an hour pretty quickly, and great conversation, excellent conversation. But I think it's probably about time we should wrap this up. I did want to thank Susie for being on the call again, and absolutely love seeing you here. And I know she's popped in on a lot of your other meetings. And I know one of the things she did for me is I hit her up very short notice and had her come in on our very last pets session that happened last week. And I didn't announce it to anybody. I just had her as a surprise there. And she was wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that, Susie. It was great. And so very, very happy to see you on all these calls.
Are we going to do this in July?
Yep. Who's going to do it?
Probably a district governor.
Probably a district governor. Are you volunteering, Roxy?
Roxy will do it.
Oh, I'll do it.
All right.
Okay. All right. Should we pick a date?
Yep.
Okay. How about July 12th? Does that work?
Yep, it does. I can't think of a better thing to do on my birthday.
Oh, no. Is it really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, well, I'll bring cake.
Well, you know, the good thing about it is I'm sure that cake will not have much taste to it, but it will be really low in calories.
Exactly. We can all bring candles.
All
Okay,
right.
we're gonna do 6 o'clock again?
Yeah, that'd be good. Send me your ideas on what you want on the agenda.
All right.
All right. Y'all stay safe. Have a great installations and kicking off the year. We'll see y'all on the 30th.
All
Yeah,
right.
Congratulations to everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay,
What a great bunch
bye.
of guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Later, guys.
Good night, guys.